ready to begin. Welcome everybody to our CCS Major Insights Transportation Design. I'm Sabrina Nelson. I am a senior admissions counselor at CCS. So myself and Eric are co-hosts this evening as we support Paul Snyder tonight as he talks about the Department for Transportation. He is our chair of our Bachelor of Fine Arts program for Transportation Design. And I'm going to introduce him and he's going to talk to you about what we have to offer at CCS. And if you have any admissions questions, whether it's about the portfolio or transferring or the GPA requirements, Eric and I can certainly answer. Also, if you have questions or something you don't understand, make sure you put it in the chat box and we'll do the best that we can to answer immediately. We also have another admissions counselor on here as well, Randy Keeler. So some of us, you will know if you are a student who's already gone through the admissions process. So Paul, with that said, I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Thanks, Sabrina.
You're welcome.
Well, so as Sabrina said, I am the chair of transportation design at the College for Creative Studies. That is the undergraduate 4-year degree. We do also have an MFA degree in transportation design, but that's a different department. So based on the roster for tonight that I saw pretty quickly, I understand that some of you are transferring, some of you are just graduating high school and are interested in CCS and transportation design coming up here in the fall, and others maybe next year. So I'm here to help you guys understand what we do, what your experience will be like, and the kinds of things you'll be working on, the kind of companies you'll be working with. So I have a few things to show you. I don't have it sort of laid out in a specific sequence of any kind, so I was hoping that you guys would ask me some questions and then I could show you examples as I talk through it, if that sounds okay. If not, I can just start with some student work. And do you guys have any questions? Yeah. So this is exactly what it was like teaching in April after the lockdown. All the kids, like we were face to face in February, and we were doing these Zoom sessions. And what I have is a couple of fabulous photographs of Brandy and Elizabeth, and then Willie stepping up with his camera on, and the rest of you guys are incognito. And let me tell you, that is a challenge to teach a class like that. So kudos to Willie. Thank you, man. So anyway, let me show you some student work. I'm going to start with the freshman year. Okay. This could be fun. These are just my personal photos, so hopefully there's nothing too weird. So Emily Klutt was doing some cubes and a grayscale as we're learning the rules of perspective, right? Everybody draws boxes in the first year. Let's go back. And then by midterm, everybody's scale model is coming along. And this is a model that, not this one specifically, but we all had to build a model. That was mine. And let me show you. Then we got into color. Right? You saw the first week, right? That's how fast you learn in your first year at CCS. So let me go back. And that's my demonstration. So this is my demonstration that I did. I was teaching VisCom 1 last semester. So we go from boxes to color and materials, and this is a cylinder and 3 different materials. And I simply took this red one and put it on its side and gave it chrome wheels. So that's kind of like the first car experience or transportation sort of vehicle experience. And let's see where we went from there. Okay, then we did the rocket project. This was cool. Different materials. There's another one. Beautiful, right? Can you guys see it okay? Da, da, da. Oh, and then we started the Exploded View project. So that was my demonstration. 3 separate layers of tracing paper to get all these things in perspective at the same time. So that was challenging. The students rose to the occasion though. Here's a couple other lead up demos on colored paper. That's mine. And that was the instructor's final demonstration, the final piece. That was me. And I'd have to go to a different menu to find other work from other students. So I'm going to stop sharing. What did you guys think of that? Hey, Eli, nice to see you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Where are you coming in from?
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, sweet. I love Ann Arbor.
Thank you.
It's a walkable town.
Yep.
Which high school, Eli?
Community high school, but I play sports at Pioneer.
Okay, cool. I'm always at both.
Okay.
So are you thinking of entering in the fall, Eli, or?
No, I'm actually class of 2021.
Okay.
But I'm looking at dual enrolling at our community college to get more art credits as of right now. But I'm just keeping my options open. I'm really interested in architecture, product design, fashion design, and automotive design. So
wow.
I'm just exploring.
Hey, Eli, I'd like to introduce myself quickly. I'm Eric Castor. I'm the transfer advisor at CCS. You may want to connect with either myself or your freshman counselor if you're thinking about taking classes. Let's make sure that you're taking classes that count, right?
Okay.
So we got some kind of transfer plan.
Okay, yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, be in touch with one of us.
Perfect. Thank you.
That is a really good idea. I was just going to say the same thing. That would be a good question. What classes should I take that I hope to transfer in?
Right.
And not a lot of double dipping with AP credits and dual enrollment. So just especially with Community High, Pioneer, and Washtenaw. So
yeah. I know it's a pretty busy schedule.
So here's some work from a senior in December. That's pretty cool. So this project was sponsored by Lax Trim. And Lax Trim is one of those unknown supplier companies that provides all the different kinds of trim pieces for all the different interiors of the vehicles that we buy and some of the exterior badging and things like that. So what they were looking at is different ways that textures and finishes can enhance a vehicle's appearance. So Lexi here, Alexandra Lexi, she applied some textures here and then in through here and here. And then she kind of considered the whole graphic statement as a textural sort of approach. So there's this window in here and there's 2 people that sit in this. The model was just beautiful. Pretty cool stuff, huh? So we could also talk about what's happening in the industry. I imagine some of you might be, oh, I'm not reading. Okay, that's cool. That's awesome. Beautiful, that one-out drive, yeah. All right, check out this. I'm going to show you some work. This is a combination of work. This is a presentation that I put together for a keynote address that I was making in San Antonio, Texas in March. We were already fist bumping and elbow bumping because, you know, we knew it was coming, but we weren't at lockdown yet. So it contains some thoughts about the future of the industry. And in fact, it's called Designing Transportation for the City of the Future. So I'm just going to run through it quickly because if you're interested in transportation design, this is the kind of context that you're going to have to be operating within because the industry is changing pretty radically, more radically than since the invention of the automobile, honestly. So let me share the screen here. Okay, so that's just the title page. Okay, there we go. So we have been in the age of automobiles for at least 60 years, right? Vehicles, gasoline, insurance, dealing with dealerships and parking. This really smart guy from General Motors, Larry Burns, he was the, I think, president of the research and development. At the same time, he was working with Bob Lutz. And they rethought the Corvette, and they basically rethought Cadillac, and they basically saved the company. But you know, he always had his thoughts towards the future. So he just wrote this book, Age of Automobility, and he says the future of mobility is in terms of how companies can stay afloat. It's going to be selling miles, not cars, selling trips, experiences, and accessibility.
Well, you may not have to, but be prepared in case.
I couldn't quite hear you, but I want to hear the commentary. I can't see the chat right now. All right, well, I'll just continue on. So this is a model that was built in Alias and is being viewed in virtual reality. So these are the kinds of experiences that automotive designers are creating every day. This is how the workflow is happening now. Especially since the pivot, it's more digital than anything. When I say the pivot, I call it the pivot. That's since we've been all working, living, teaching, and learning remotely. So, this is being viewed in VR. Obviously, you're not in VR right now, but it was created using Alias while in virtual reality. You can see here, he had a package drawing back there. That's what we call the two-dimensional side view that includes indications for the human user and where the motor is going to be, the steering wheel, etc. And then evaluating that in VR. So really getting to get inside of your own design virtually. We did a lot of that last semester too. And this is what Toyota's working on. So the future of design, regardless of the type of design that you're going to do, is going to be very, very collaborative to the point where I think, Eli, you said you're interested in architecture. So Toyota teams up with an architect. I can't really, I'm not sure, Bjarke Ingels, how to pronounce that name. I've never heard of the guy before, but Toyota teams up with this architect, and they create a city of the future. Now, this sounds like a crazy idea if you're thinking about the United States, but when I was living in Japan, if you go to Nagoya and Osaka, you're basically in Toyota town because everybody works for Toyota. That's how huge it is. So they've decided to team up with architects and create a city of the future to make the experience of working for Toyota and just living your life wonderful, right? So designers, architects, urban planners, they're thinking on a really grand scale, and architecture and vehicle design will become very, I think, integrated in many ways. These are just absolutely pure boxes, right? So this one was done by Hyundai. This was at the Consumer Electronics Show in January. And I thought this was pretty cool as well, but it looks really dangerous, right? Would you want to walk out of that tube right into, there should be guardrails or something going around those sidewalks, I think. But other than that, it's a cool image and it's a cool vision. So GM just did this. And so they're very serious about it. This is a 6-passenger, I think, 6 or maybe 8. They bought Cruise. Cruise has the software. They're working on the hardware. So these things are really coming. This presentation was about the future of mobility. So if you're in and around Detroit, this might look familiar to you. I think it was a really good effort, but for the same amount of money, they could have equipped the whole of Woodward up to the same point with autonomous sensors. And the vehicles will be out within a few years, but the infrastructure still needs to be put in. This was about, I don't want to quote numbers, but it was a significant investment. If they had worked with the companies around Detroit, they might have been able to do something really visionary. So this is one of my students' work. He's graduated now and he's already working for Ford. He graduated last year and he took one mobility class while I had him. His other classes were more of the automotive interior and exterior design, but this was his mobility presentation. And what he did is he thought about a company like Lime, where you can get scooters downtown and around in different places, and how you could integrate that with a bus. So you can see where the scooters store right down the middle and they get recharged, and people have, instead of seat, you can choose to sit or stand. Everything is sort of Wi-Fi connected. This is a great idea. And buses, we're basically building a lot more buses still, but the possibility of where we're going is immense. So one of the projects we did a couple of years ago was a community inspired project working with some of the research that was done in Detroit called Detroit Future City. And they were identifying from the ground up, it was like an ethnography of the city, so it was really genuine. And with a few sort of takeaways from that, we decided to create some vehicles and some experiences, assuming there would be some partnerships with some local corporate sponsors, and we were working directly with Ford on this project. And so the interior design students did these buildings, and the transportation design students did these vehicles. So this vehicle is based around getting some new skill as you're commuting to work. And that student was from Drayton Reading, and his idea was to have like a DJ camp going on while he's on his way to work in the morning. So we can learn how to do the different kinds of mixing, learn about software, programming, all that kind of thing. And then there are these single passenger pods for really short commutes to the bus stop. And this would be the bus that would hold about 40 people, fully autonomous. But this is what's going on today. This is the new button. Now, what do you guys think of this? What's the first thing you saw when I turned the page?
The steering wheel, on how it's so like the connection between the interface right in the center.
Yeah, the contrast.
Yeah, I mean, it just like connects to the circular handlebar with just two spots, where in a traditional car it's 3.
Yeah, that's cool, right? The only problem I have with this is the fact that it has a steering wheel, because with that much screen in front of my eyes, I don't want to be driving. I'm going to get distracted and it's going to be really dangerous. So presumably this thing is going to be fully equipped with level 4 autonomy. If not, I hope that screen is a lot less visually entertaining while I'm driving. It's also quite a high cowl. So these are the kinds of things that a transportation designer really thinks about. This is a product that you're going to put on the road, and safety is a big concern. So while I think it's an absolutely beautiful sculptural form, the whole notion of screens needing to get bigger while we still have to drive, to me, is a little bit scary. I love the Tesla, and you know, that whole thing it's different. Being able to upload updates to your car is very, very different from the screen being the focal point of your interior experience when you're having to drive. But if you live in a place like this, you know, you have to drive. This is a suburb set up in the U.S. There are millions of suburbs, hundreds of millions of people living in places just like this with garages, because we are also reliant on personal transportation. Remember, this presentation was for a mobility class, right? And these are the alternatives. But what are the different kinds of mobility that people will be offered, right? So this was a student from a Cadillac project, sponsored project last semester, fall. And this was his vision for a luxury limo interior of the future. That would be an autonomous vehicle. What do you think the exterior would look like? Oh, this is the model he made. Sorry, I didn't get onto the exterior yet. This exterior is just a sort of placeholder kind of a thing so that you can see the interior really well and somehow put it into dimensional scale, you know, with people. So he's illustrating the whole experience so you can see how big the vehicle is. On the right-hand side, you can see all the models that that he made. Like each one of those seats is a model, but the cool thing is you can duplicate it, copy and paste. So these are all the skill sets that our students are employing at CCS. This was his first semester senior. Actually, the exterior that was floating behind my head was also done by him last semester. Anyway, so this could be an exterior of what that future autonomous vehicle might look like. That is a shared ride experience. So this was designed in Gravity Sketch, which means the initial sketches were done in virtual reality, the wireframe for it, and the sort of evaluation of the interior space. And this was a joke that a kid did for a Viscom class. I just love it because it's like, it's such a great Viscom assignment response. You know, it's lighthearted. It's not a design class, it's a Viscom class. But it's a car, you know, so this would be a very protective vehicle. These are what other students have done in mobility classes. This guy, Scott, he's also at Ford. I think he went to the Ford Design is now split into like different groups. There's the traditional car and truck design center, and then there's Team Edison, which is doing autonomous vehicles like this. And I think Scott went to Team Edison, and then there's D Ford Design or Design Ford. And they're on more of the design process and conceptual side. I guess they had a big say in a lot of the content that went into the F-150 and the Bronco. This is another assignment for a vehicles type transportation product. So at CCS, we do we do automotive interior, we do automotive exterior, we do mobility, and we do vehicles. And vehicles are everything from a vocational vehicle, which is a car with a job, or a vehicle with a job, like this robot. The idea here was actually on the right-hand side, you see this power unit? That was the idea, and then all the different vehicles that could plug into was the overall grand story. So anyway, so vehicles are like, this would be a kind of a future on-site school experience that would be a vehicle. And fire engines, motorcycles, so everything that has a job or everything that's for recreational, those are vehicles. So those are the four things that we do. but more and more students are getting into experience design. So Andrew Rudd was one of my favorite students in the early days when in 2015 when I started back at CCS, because he was so crazy. He always came up with these crazy ideas, and he did these beautiful illustrations. So the idea here is bringing people together in a communal way, promoting tolerance, and he's kind of a Gen Z hippie, I guess, and that's actually him. That's a self-portrait of him and the far right, sorry, the far left of the screen. And Sepida, the woman who did the color and materials, is right next to him. That's how good of an artist he was. But he comes up with this beautiful idea of sitting on saddles instead of conventional seats. If you're in an autonomous vehicle, why do you need to sit on a conventional seat or sit on a bench? So why not sit on saddles? And so Andrew went to Tesla for an internship, and then he went to, actually first it was Volkswagen, and then he went to Tesla, and then he went to Honda, and then he accepted a job offer from NVIDIA, because NVIDIA was poking around in the future mobility space as well for a while. And then he got recruited away for a company called Zoox. Do you guys, have you heard of Zoox? What just happened to Zoox? Amazon bought them outright. So I am so excited to see what Zoox does, because I know that this kid, Andrew Rudd, is going to have a big part of what that experience will be. And he's got his heart in the right place. And then lastly, again, more experience design, kind of mobility design, just thinking about people and the way they live their lives. In a lot of instances, we may get a chance to design the vehicle that we would love to own, like a sports car or a a race car or a pickup truck or something. But most cases, we're thinking about the human user. We're putting the user first. And in this case, this student is thinking about people who love their pets, or even somebody who is a pet walker. And it's got everything but a steering wheel, plenty of places for the puppies to hang out. All right, that's the end of that presentation. How are we doing for time? We're almost halfway through. So did that inspire any questions?
It just inspired some questions for me about the Ford. You said they had 3 different design programs. So I was wondering.
They're kind of like design divisions, I think.
Right.
I'm not sure on a corporate level if they're actually considered different divisions, but they're not working closely. Well, everybody works closely now, but they're coming at the problems from different directions,
right,
strategically.
So I was wondering if you could mention some products that Ford has recently released from each of those divisions, as we're calling them, which ones they were responsible or had the most impact on.
Well, Team Edison is now working with Argo, and Argo is one of the offshoots of the early DARPA projects that invented all this autonomous technology and the LiDAR. So they're on the forefront of that. They haven't released anything yet. I do not know what they've been up to. It's a big secret. But I'm told D Ford and the traditional design center, where I used to work very closely. And what I've heard is what I kind of experienced when I was at Honda, which I really appreciated, and that was a much flatter organizational structure where the designers are talking to the engineers face to face, and also it's the interior design, the exterior design, the engineers, the color and materials people, but also the marketing people and the finance people are all represented, and they together define that vehicle. So if they have a certain customer and the designers think it needs to be a certain way, perhaps 4 passengers with 20-inch wheels or something. That's an agreement much better made on day one than fought over many, many steps down the road. So that's just a simple example. But when everybody's in agreement what a future product should be, then the success of that product is much more clearly ensured. So I think D Ford had a lot to do with the new F-150 and the Bronco. The designers in the studio did it, but it was the design process that allowed it to happen. If that makes sense. The design process it's the cerebral side of what we do. And the emotional side is all the beautiful artwork and sketches that we create and these really cool models. Willie, did you have a question where you were going to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add that to your question, Eli. I know Team Edison designed the Mach-E as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it seemed like
so it's the electric vehicle.
Right. So that's what I was kind of wondering.
I thought they teamed up with Argo.
Yeah, they did. They're doing like all their electric stuff and autonomous stuff.
Okay.
And Paul, there's a question in the chat box for you too. Can you explain what kind of collaborations we can expect in our first year between CCS departments, other departments maybe?
In your first year, you'll be sharing classes with other students from other departments. But I guess you could say when we do our critiques, that's a kind of a collaboration. But let me just cut to the chase. The collaborations start once you've established some fundamental skills. So the freshman year and the sophomore year are all about building those fundamental skills. And at the end of the sophomore year, you'll be able to draw in perspective and use at least a couple different kinds of software for 3D modeling. And that's the beginning of your junior year. And that's when collaboration really starts. So coming up in the fall semester, for example, we have a Japanese manufacturer it sounds like they're kind of interested in electric powertrains. They're called AIM. So they're sponsoring a project, and it's either going to be an SUV or a like a Formula E car or something like that. So I think we've decided, because of the student experience and the practicality of the brief, we're going to do an SUV. So we're going to team up with the interior design students again and the exterior design students to do a collaborative project of some kind of electric SUV or CUV. And I'm sure that'll be a hot one. And then at the senior level, UNESCO is sponsoring a mobility project. UNESCO, Detroit is the one. I think it's still the only city of design in the United States right now. So we're going to be doing a project with them, which is going to be re-envisioning Detroit as a city of the future, like fast forwarding, and that's going to go on tour around the definitely through Europe, France, Austria, and then on to Asia, I believe, in a couple stops. I think Tokyo. So we're collaborating with product design on that one because we want to design the complete door-to-door experience. So like the devices that you might be holding or wearing, as well as how they communicate with the vehicles that you're going to get into and out of in order to get where you're going. And we're trying for the first time to team up with U of D Mercy to include urban planning and architecture in this brief, because it is a city of design, Detroit City of Design kind of initiative. So having some architecture and urban planning would really make that amazing. So those are the collaborations coming up this semester, but we've collaborated with Color Materials. Most of our sponsored projects now are collaborative because they're just such great opportunities. I want more students to have that experience. So when you start at CCS in your freshman year, you're going to be going through a lot of very rigorous exercises in terms of learning to draw, how to translate a drawing into three-dimensional form, And then the sophomore year, you'll make sophisticated clay models, and then also practicing some of the software along the way. So you're thinking 2D, 3D in two different ways, virtually and physically. And each sort in the feedback loop of trial and error, you learn really quickly in that way. And you're learning Photoshop as well in the sophomore year. So in the junior year, you're ready to hit the ground running, and that's where you do your portfolio creation, and that's where the students begin to compete to get into specific studios. And so because not all, I can't tell you how many gearheads I've met, like real petrol heads, rebuilding their own engines, know everything about every kind of cool sports car out there, but their actual aesthetic skills or drawing skills just aren't that great. So those guys have to work harder to get into the automotive sponsored classes, because this is a competitive business. You have to meet a minimum level of expertise to keep moving on, and then if you do, you start working right after school. Even during the pandemic, FCA offered two of our kids a job. And the reason I'm laughing is because they offered them last year before they even graduated. And the same thing happened at GM. In January, another guy got an offer. And then, so all these people graduated, these three examples anyway. And the companies had completely shut down hiring. But because these offers were already made and these kids were so totally strong, they went right to industry. And it's funny actually, because they had to drive to the design center, and some dude would run out with a computer and put it in his trunk and close the trunk, and he'd drive home, and then he's got a secure workstation. So everybody's working from home right now, and it's not really a worry, because so much of what we do is digital anyway. Everybody, all my friends in industry, we miss the smell of clay, we miss seeing each other socially, but we're getting through this. Nobody's losing their jobs because we're capable of doing this, which is just awesome. And some companies are still hiring through this. But rightly so, there's a lot of potential economic worry right now, so things have slowed down a little bit. But last year, Ford took 8 kids right out of school, and GM took 2, and FCA, I think, a couple, and then and then people went out to California for different, some kids went to Honda. It's hard to keep track. The industry is huge, and I've got like 150 children. I don't want to be pedantic or anything, but you guys are like my kids. It makes me so happy to see you do well and get jobs when you're done.
So
So anyway,
there was another question from Sebastian.
Okay.
About the influence, what influence can make future transportation designers and automotive companies to attack environmental issues? So maybe making green design cars, or expanding the customization of cars to avoid consumerism and avoiding designing new cars every few years, like upgrading on cars. So that's in the chat box. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, so that was Sebastian said that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Sebastian. I'm not sure if you saw my presentation, but it was those very issues that are the basis for what people are calling the age of automobility. And that is, right now, if you talk to people about autonomous vehicles, many of them will be the very same people who will absolutely not accept it, because they see it as a loss of freedom for themselves, like owning and driving their own car. That is a sign of freedom, right? But when you think about all the people who can't get to where they need to be, because they have to own a car but can't afford one, that is a loss of freedom. So, you know, the other point I was trying to make in that presentation is that there is now a really, really limited amount of choices. You have to own a car. But in the future, if everybody's got their heart in the right place and we are successful at making the world a better place, then there'll be more choices. There'll be luxury shuttles that pick you up at your door. You call them on an app. Maybe it's a Cadillac app, and that beautiful, shuttle picks you up, or maybe it's just something that's extremely durable, gets you safely from where you are to where you need to go, and that's it. And that's really affordable, and that's democratized transportation, right? So there's two different ways of looking at it. Believe me, I'm aware of both, but it's extremely complicated when the world infrastructure is based around the car for the most part. A lot of Europe, a lot of Asia. More other companies are way ahead of the US as far as trains go, but trains are cool. We haven't had a train project in a long time, but we did some boats last semester. But when I was living in Milan working for Honda, I had to commute to Torino to make the prototypes. And I had a kind of a hot hatch. They're called Jazz. It was all right. It was cool, and I was driving. It was like an hour drive, and it was a fun drive to the countryside. But driving into Milan every day for work from Monza was absolutely prohibitive from a time point of view, from a congestion point of view. So I took the train every day, and that was awesome. I got to read, catch up on stuff. So anyway, anything that gets you from A to B, there's going to be pros and cons, but there's going to be choices, and there needs to be more choices. I hope I answered your question, Sebastian. As far as environmental concerns, material technologies are really advancing. I don't know if you guys saw that orange juice machine that uses the peels that it's squeezing as a fundamental substance in the creation of the cup. So talk about cradle to grave utilization of a material. Just goes right back into a new function. So material technologies are really a big part of that. As a world, really, we need to focus more on clean energy production, because regardless if we're going to drive electric cars or internal combustion engines, the power's got to come from somewhere. So harness the sun. I mean, we have the Detroit River, and I've been asking people that I know in the city, why don't we put a turbine in the river? Yeah, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe it'll happen. But we're getting a lot more wind in Michigan here. I know other places in the country have a lot more wind. California's got a ton. It's very cool. Yeah, so let me show you some more work. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's one question about suggested books that you might suggest before they get there, or do you suggest that incoming freshmen wait until they get the syllabus and the required books, or something they could look at before they arrive?
Mm-hmm.
I know you mentioned in your presentation earlier, but I didn't know if that was something you were suggesting the students kind of check out.
Yeah. So I'll show you a book. This was written by Jordan Meadows. He's a friend of mine from Ford. It's called Vehicle Design. It's a pretty good book. He's a chief out there, and it covers all the steps. I mean, it's a great sort of rundown. I've been thinking to maybe use it as a textbook because it covers everything. He gets a little bit into like future cities and that extreme sort of paradigm shift that I've been talking about. But you know, it's mainly about car design and every aspect of it. So that's a pretty good book. As far as perspective books go, if you're interested in working on your drawing before you come in, because you will be doing a lot of drawing. There's this one, How to Draw by Scott Robertson. Those are both really good. And you'll have, this is required. The other book, not yet. I'm thinking about it. So that's a good question. All right, I was going to try and show you guys a video here. Let me just find the one. Oh, you know what? I don't think you're going to be able to see or hear the audio. Can you hear that? Let me see if I can share it. You guys seeing that?
Not hearing it, Paul.
No audio. So this was oh, that's fine. It's just music. It's kind of like you know, dramatic angels singing and things like that. But this was a senior, and he had been through every internship, and I think he was on the 6-year plan because he kept getting more internships. And for his final thesis project, he decided to do this project around the notion of space travel. I did a lot of research. And so what's happening now, if you could hear it, he is talking to Hojun, his instructor, about how to improve this design. There's another view of it there. Some details. And then it starts with another student. So this was happening in April, and these are the that's Hojun up there. He's the teacher, and then these are kids working from home. And so this is Shoe Bombs. He did the wheel with computational modeling, which is really cool. You can see that mesh network in there and the pattern. But he also did an animation. The final animations are killer. So these guys decided they did enough cars. They're both on internships. They did so many different kinds of, you know, SUVs, commuter vehicles, mobility projects, interiors, exteriors, vehicles. And so they wanted to do something totally crazy and do space vehicles for a proposed mission to Calypso, which I think is a moon off of Jupiter. And so I said, okay, yeah, go for it. You guys, you're yeah, that's the other way of looking at it. We better save this planet or we're going to have to get off it. All right.
Hey, Paul,
Yeah.
I have another question about certification for clay modeling.
Yeah. So that's a 1-year program. If you're living locally, it's like 2 nights a week. You work with a professional sculptor from General Motors who comes down. Derek Spear, GM modelers rock. They're really talented. And they also help us on the clay models at the end of every sponsored project. They help us come in and slick them up a little bit before the paint. So anyway, yeah, it's a pretty short, the clay modeling, professional automotive modeling program is what we call it. It's just 2 semesters. We've been talking about expanding it a little bit, but you know, it's like, so it's 12 students per year and it's going really well. The placement rate is quite high. We also have a certificate in digital modeling. So you can become a an A-class surface designer using Alias and some other software probably.
So that's a really good segue to another question. We have
Okay.
a student here asking about the use of Unreal Engine for projects. So when
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. I think this animation going on behind me was done in Unreal Engine. Excuse me. And so everything is happening so quickly. It's really truly amazing. So John and Lee Chen and Ryan discovered Unreal Engine from their friends in the gaming department, and then applied it to the rendering and animation of their transportation design classes. These two kids are extraordinary, and so they self-taught. And so at the same time, Unity Graphics is approaching me about sponsoring a project. If you don't know Unity Graphics, that's because they didn't create Fortnite. Because Unreal Engine created Fortnite, and now they just have money coming out of their ears, you know. So Unity does everything Unreal Engine does, and they're probably the only competitor out there. And now they're both approaching my department because they've seen how this could be used not only for marketing purposes and advertising and things like that, but also in the design process for evaluating the interior of a vehicle virtually. Unreal Engine supports a VR experience because, you know, they're trying to launch some VR games, you know. I don't think anything has caught on yet, but the auto industry is just loving this. So what's happening at Ford and many of the other companies right now during the pandemic is the designers are checking the engineering and digital modeling data virtually, you know, from home. You know, Maury lives over and, you know, and Mike's over there and Ralph's over there, and they're all doing this headset evaluation. So it's like our skill sets are really preparing kids for the future. But in any case, so Unreal is definitely going to be installed on all our computers now, and Unity is sponsoring a project in the fall. And I didn't mention that one. That one's going to be really exciting. Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be yeah, somebody asked the question about collaboration. So we're actually going to collaborate with Entertainment Arts in the fall, because the kids in Entertainment Arts are going to design the environments, and my senior interior and exterior students are going to design the vehicles. So fast forward to December, and you'll be seeing a lot of really cool animations coming out of CCS Instagram page.
So Paul, we've got about 7 minutes left. So
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that everyone's questions were answered that needed to be addressed to you personally. I know that there is at least one question about admissions, specifically the portfolio. And this poor student is actually checking in from Delhi, India. And
yeah.
3 a.m. So I definitely want to get to them and address their question about the portfolio requirements.
Okay.
So does anybody else have any questions for Paul before we let him check out?
Hi, my name is Natalia, and I realize that a lot of students here are actually going to be starting in the fall of this year, but I'm actually entering my last year in high school, and I wanted to ask if there's anything specific that I can prepare for if I was interested in this program.
Well, that depends on what they offer in your high school. You know, if you could take any kind of drawing is helpful. Actual perspective drawing is really helpful. But on the other side, if they're offering classes in computer-aided design or any kind of technology or Photoshop, that would also help you get ahead a little bit.
Oh, you have to put that in
And then, you know, just bring your whole self to your folio. Just, you know, what things that you like and the things that you've done.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so Sabrina, I don't know, we've got about 5 minutes left. Maybe now would be a good time to begin taking some questions about the admissions process, timeline.
Yeah, I wanted to say, was that Natalia speaking a couple seconds ago? I'm sorry to cut you off, Eric.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so I just wanted to let you know, you can also ask for an unofficial portfolio review from anybody in admissions, you know, as you go along, as you're getting ready to prepare for coming into CCS. Myself, Eric, Brandy, Sasha, April, Olivia, and Laura, we can all look at your portfolio and give you feedback any time of the year before you actually apply. So it's an unofficial portfolio review.
Okay, thank you.
There's actually a place on our website in the portfolio development section where you can request to have, I think, up to 5 uploads. You can submit work and have us get back to you with your preferred method, whether it be a phone call or an email, or probably do a video chat.
Okay, I'll look into it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Questions about admissions? We do have 4 minutes left. You know, for those of you who believe in prime time, it will be 8 o'clock here in Detroit. I know there's a few from California, someone here from Mexico, and then we also had someone online that was from India. It was like 4 o'clock.
Yeah. And I want to address that question. So there was a question about portfolio and what to include. And I think the student from Delhi was going to be transferring. So, you know, your portfolio, you want to document your work. So any studio classes that you do take, make sure that you have at least several of your best examples from each of those classes. Because myself and Amber Thomas, who is the associate director, as well as Paul, will evaluate your work and make sure that you're working at a competency level that we would expect of our students here at CCS, that you have the knowledge base that's required for any given class. You may also want to collect course descriptions or syllabi for those studio classes that you take. That will also be helpful in our ability to evaluate it and make sure that you're working, again, at a comparable level. And hopefully that answers your questions.
And that's just for transfer students, for anybody else?
Just for transfer, yeah.
So Eli, even though you're considering doing some dual enrollment, we would still consider you an incoming freshman high school student. So we'll look at AP, or we'll look at the classes that you've taken either at Washtenaw or any other collegiate study. But we do look at freshman portfolios as freshman portfolios, and transfer students, depending on how much school they've worked, Eric and Amber will evaluate along with Paul Snyder to see, you know, fit into our program. But as an incoming freshman, we evaluate those as incoming students straight out of high school.
This is another Mustang project from the same class.
I love the seat belts on that, the like pop of color. And I know I've talked to a couple of interior folks before where they talk about using the fashion industry to add to that as well.
This is the final presentation. So that was the president of the school, and that's Murray Callum. And
wow.
Here's another one.
Paul, is it okay if I ask another question about 4?
Oh, there's Joel, global director. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm very interested in designing sports cars right now, and this reminded me of a video I just watched. It was about the design behind the Ford GT and the aerodynamics. So what program would be designing the Ford GT? Where would that be coming out of?
The Ford GT was it was extremely accelerated, but it was the same way they designed everything else. It was kind of done in a clandestine way, you know, in order to get it through the system without too much, you know, intervention between other departments and divisions. But so they had a sketch party, you know, they had a sketch blitz. They asked you know, pretty large group of people to contribute. And the best sketches won and went directly to, actually, I can't really say if they made a clay. I'm not that familiar with it. They must have had a clay confirmation at least, but they might have done the initial iteration in Alias digitally. And then the Alias designers, or the designers working with Alias modelers, would send that data file to ISOMsurf or CATIA people, and they make, that's just the way Ford does it. Like Tesla goes directly from Alias, but Ford likes to use CATIA-based software for their final A-class surface transfer to the engineers. So it's just a nuance of the company. Yeah, so that does that answer your question?
Yeah. Also, what department or segment for like the Edison team or whatnot, who would be mainly responsible for that?
Well, you caught me on the Edison thing. I thought Edison was had become Argo and was working with the autonomous group, but I was wrong. So no, I think it was Willie caught me. So
I don't know what they're doing now, but I know
I don't know.
they did a Mach-E.
I know that GT was done by the same guys who've done, pickup trucks and Mustangs. The Mach-E was done by some old friends too. So I don't know. It might have been a collaborative divisional experience. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't work on the inside anymore. I don't get that kind of,
Okay. Thank
highly
you.
confidential information.
Oh, real quick, before we wrap things up, there was
Yeah.
about any suggestions or requirements for laptops. I don't think we really do in your program, but if somebody wanted something.
That's a really good question, Eric. We don't have a laptop policy because the software that we use requires so much power. But things have changed a bit. If you're coming in the fall, just by virtue of the hybrid nature of the semester, you should have even an old laptop is going to be fine because we have virtual desktop interface now, and all you need is some kind of a laptop or a keyboard and a screen and a Wi-Fi connection, and you can run everything, all the high power software, Unreal Engine, Alias, VRED, all that stuff from home logged into CCS servers. So if you could afford a computer, that's great, get one. We have everything that you need here on campus, but this semester is going to be a little bit different. So if you could get a laptop of some kind, that would make your life a little bit easier. But more importantly, you guys need a workstation too at home. If you are starting this fall, I'm going to stop this background here for a sec. If you are starting this fall, you need a place to work and draw at home. And all that means, this is where I was doing all my demos for Viscom 1 after we all got locked out. You can see the Ferrari demo there. And it's just, you need a drawing board and somewhere to store your stuff. That's it.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Eric, for that final question. If you all have any questions, I put in the comment group chat that you all can reach out to our admissions office, and we'll make sure that we, even if we don't know the answer, we'll get the answer to you. We have everyone's email for you signing up. You might also get a follow-up email to ask if we've answered all your questions or if there's anything else that you might need. So it is right now, I am the timekeeper, 8:05. And so we are going to stop the session. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And there are 17 participants left in the room, so I hope we've answered all of your questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for your comments, your questions, and the like. And so
everybody.
I'm gonna stay in the living room until everyone leaves. So
Yeah, I'll hang around too.
Wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Eli and Lily, for your questions and your comments as well. And Samantha and Sebastian and a couple others as well.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thanks for logging on. I'm sorry to get a chance to chat with all of you. I'm going to hang out if there are any more questions. Are we going to get automatically booted out, or is it going to?
No, I'll hold on. I'll hold on.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll get automatically booted out, but I'm going to stop the recording, by the way.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you before I leave. Thank you for having me, and this has been really helpful.
Good, Eli. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you maybe this fall, Eli. So I'll be hopefully either for real in at your high school or for fake video.
Right, right.
I'm gonna either hit you at Community or Pioneer, so either one.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right, see ya. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much for all your help.